The shell punches through steel at 1,200 feet per second. Inside USS Johnston's engine room, water tender second class feels the deck buck beneath his boots. Steam hisses. Darkness floods in where light should be. The Fletcher-class destroyer, all 2,050 tons of her, shudders like a living thing shot through the heart. It's October 25, 1944, off Samar Island. Commander Ernest Evans stands on what remains of his bridge, watching the largest battleship ever built, Yamato, 72,000 tons, turn her 18-inch guns toward his tiny tin can. 3 hours ago, Johnston was babysitting escort carriers. Now, she's charging the entire Japanese fleet. Evans knew this would happen. When he took command a year earlier, he told his crew, "This is going to be a fighting ship. Anyone who doesn't want to go into harm's way, get off right now." Nobody left. Now, bleeding from shrapnel wounds, half his bridge crew dead around him, Evans is making good on that promise. His destroyer has already crippled the heavy cruiser Kumano with torpedoes, already fired over 200 rounds at targets that outweigh her 30-1. The paradox is impossible to ignore. Johnston should be dead, but she's still fighting. Behind her smokescreen, 6 escort carriers are launching everything they have. Wildcats, Avengers, some carrying only depth charges because they're out of bombs. The kamikaze era hasn't fully begun yet, but what's happening here off Samar is just as suicidal. American destroyers versus battleships. David with a 5-inch gun against Goliath's 18-inch rifles. How did it come to this? How did America build a destroyer so tough, so versatile, that it could face down an empire and win? The answer lies not in this battle, but in the shipyards that built 175 of these warships faster than Japan could sink them. Stay with this story.
September 1939. Naval architects gather in Washington with a problem that's haunted American destroyer design for a decade. The London Naval Treaty is dead, and the Pacific Ocean is enormous. Previous destroyer classes, Porters, Sommers, Bensons, were compromised by treaty restrictions. Limited tonnage, limited armament. Ships designed for the Atlantic, not the 5,000-mile distances of Pacific warfare. Intelligence reports show Japanese destroyers, the Fubuki class, the special type, displacing 2,000 tons with 6 5-inch guns and 9 torpedo tubes. America's latest, 1,500 tons, outgunned before the first shot. The questions sent to fleet commanders are blunt. How many guns? How many torpedoes? At what point does a destroyer become too large, too slow, too tempting a target? The answers come back decisive. 5 5-inch dual-purpose guns, 10 21-inch torpedo tubes in 2 quintuple mounts, 28 depth charges, and room, critical room, for radar, for anti-aircraft batteries, for the equipment war will demand. Design displacement, 2,050 tons. Power, 60,000 shaft horsepower, driving 2 screws to 38 knots. Range, 5,500 nautical miles at cruising speed. No more compromises. The design is finalized in late 1939. First orders, June 1940. The lead ship, USS Fletcher, DD-445, is laid down at Federal Shipbuilding in Kearny, New Jersey on October 2, 1941, 2 months before Pearl Harbor. Nobody knows it yet, but this design will become the most numerous destroyer class in U.S. Navy history. A Philadelphia engineering firm runs calculations on steam pressure, 600 psi at 850 degrees Fahrenheit. General Electric delivers turbine specifications. Babcock and Wilcox perfects the boilers. Then, December 7, 1941 happens. Everything accelerates. Orders for 75 more Fletchers arrive before the first ship is even launched. The emergency isn't theoretical anymore. It's burning in Pearl Harbor, and the nation's shipyards are about to perform an industrial miracle that will reshape naval warfare forever. The clock is running.
Bath Iron Works, Federal Shipbuilding, Bethlehem Steel, Puget Sound Navy Yard, Consolidated Steel, Boston Navy Yard, Charleston Navy Yard, Gulf Shipbuilding, Seattle Tacoma, Bethlehem San Francisco, Bethlehem San Pedro. 11 shipyards, 1 mission. Inside Bath Iron Works in Maine, the smell is acrid. Cutting torches, welding flux, hot rivets. The noise is constant, industrial thunder that rattles teeth. A naval architect examines blueprints for frame 47, where the number 2 5-inch gun mount will sit. The mount alone weighs 28,000 pounds. The entire gun director system, Mark 37 fire control with Mark 12 radar, is revolutionary technology most sailors have never seen. The challenge isn't just building destroyers, it's building them fast. Federal Shipbuilding in Kearney masters an assembly process that shaves weeks off construction. Hull sections fabricated separately, then welded together on the ways. Electrical generators, 2 350-kilowatt steam turbines, plus a 100-kilowatt emergency diesel, pre-wired before installation. Boilers tested at the factory, not the dock. Every innovation shaves time. Every day saved might save lives later. An engineer at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard recalculates weight distribution. Early Fletchers, the round bridge or high bridge design with curved pilot houses, handle well but obstruct sightlines during air attacks. Mid-production, the design shifts. Square bridge, lower profile, better visibility. No debate, just evolution under fire. Workers labor around the clock. Free shifts, 7 days. The first Fletcher DD-445 launches May 3, 1942, commissioned June 30. From keel laying to commission, 271 days. The average for all 175 ships will be 364 days, 212 from keel to launch, 152 more to commission, 10% faster than previous classes. By early 1943, shipyards are launching more than one Fletcher-class destroyer per week. It's not mass production, it's mass perfection, and the Pacific is waiting, hungry for every single hull.
USS Fletcher arrives at Noumea, New Caledonia on October 5, 1942. The smell hits first. Diesel, coconut palms, the saltwater reek of a forward base. The crew hasn't seen combat. That changes in 3 weeks. October 30, Fletcher bombards Lunga Point on Guadalcanal. The 5-inch guns crack like thunder, shells screaming toward Japanese positions 8 miles inland. Gun crews learn real lessons. Rate of fire versus barrel temperature, the way the ship heals when all 5 guns fire to one side, how the Mark 37 director tracks targets through smoke. November 12th, air attack. Japanese bombers come in low over the transports Fletcher is screening. The 40mm Bofors quad mount opens up, thump, 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 thump. A rhythm gun crews will remember forever. Tracers arc upward, brilliant even in daylight. A bomber disintegrates, tumbling into the sea. Another veers off trailing smoke. The crew claims 3 kills. Adrenaline, terror, pride mixed with the acrid smell of burned powder. November 13th, night surface action off Guadalcanal. The real education begins. In darkness split by muzzle flashes, Fletcher engages Japanese destroyers at ranges under 5,000 yards. The radar gives American ships a decisive edge. They can see the enemy before being seen. Fletcher's guns hammer 2 destroyers, contributing to their sinking. Torpedoes leap from the quintuple mounts, 10 Mark 15s splashing into black water, running hot toward enemy silhouettes. The battleship High-Octane takes hits. Aircraft will finish her tomorrow, but tonight Fletcher helps cripple her. The crew learns, destroyers die fast in surface combat. Steel offers no sanctuary. Only speed, only firepower, only the electronic eye of radar makes survival possible. First combat report. 3 aircraft kills, 2 destroyer assists, 1 battleship damaged, no casualties. Fletcher has proven the design works. But she's only one ship. The real test is coming, and it's written in fire of an island called Samar.
By mid-1943, Fleet Admiral Ernest King faces a mathematics problem that will define the Pacific War. Distance, 5,000 miles from Pearl Harbor to Tokyo. Island chains, Gilberts, Marshalls, Marianas, Philippines, each a fortress. Behind each fortress, Japanese destroyers, cruisers, submarines, airfields. The Central Pacific Offensive requires screening ships, hundreds of them, destroyers to protect carriers, escort landing ships, bombard beaches, hunt submarines, defend against air attack. Current inventory, insufficient. King orders escalation. The Fletcher production rate increases. Shipyards that delivered 1 destroyer every 6 weeks now aim for 1 every month. Some yards launch 2 simultaneously. The industrial choreography is staggering. Steel allocation, propeller castings, radar sets, 5-inch ammunition. Each Fletcher requires 1,400 tons of steel, 120 miles of electrical cable, 60,000 rivets. Strategic analysts calculate loss rates. Early estimates predict 25 to 25% casualties in major fleet actions. The Solomon Islands campaigns, Guadalcanal, New Georgia, Bougainville, confirm it. USS De Haven, Fletcher class, sunk February 1, 1943 by Japanese aircraft near Savo Island, just 134 days after commissioning. USS Strong, torpedoed July 5, 1943 in Kula Gulf by destroyer Nizuki from 11 miles away, possibly the longest-range torpedo kill in history. USS Brownson, bombed December 26, 1943 off Cape Gloucester. The losses hurt. But here's the equation that terrifies Tokyo. America commissions Fletchers faster than Japan sinks them. In 1943 alone, 89 Fletchers joined the fleet. Japan manages to sink 3. The production-to-loss ratio isn't sustainable for an empire with finite industrial capacity. By 1944, Fletcher-class destroyers dominate the Pacific order of battle. They screen fast carrier task forces a truck. They bombard Kwajalein. They hunt submarines between atolls. Destroyer Squadron 23, the Little Beavers, becomes legendary. 30 engagements, 0 ships lost. The arithmetic is brutal, beautiful, inexorable. For every Fletcher lost, 5 more slide down American ways. Japan cannot match this.
0645 hours, October 25, 1944. Radar operator aboard USS Johnston sees the impossible. 4 battleships, 6 heavy cruisers, 2 light cruisers, 11 destroyers. Admiral Kurita's entire center force, 23 Japanese warships. Speed, 30 knots. Bearing, directly toward Taffy 3's 6 escort carriers. We felt like little David without a slingshot, Johnston's gunnery officer will later write. Commander Evans doesn't hesitate. He turns toward the enemy fleet. Flank speed, all engines ahead full, 60,000 horsepower screaming through the turbines. The Fletcher-class destroyer accelerates to 38 knots, laying smoke to screen the carriers. At 18,000 yards, Evans opens fire on heavy cruiser Kumano, over 200 rounds hammered out in minutes. The Mark 37 fire control radar, the same system giving Johnston pinpoint accuracy, tracks through smoke and rain squalls. Kumano takes multiple hits, veers out of formation. Then Johnston closes to torpedo range. 10 Mark 15 torpedoes ripple from the quintuple mounts. At least one strikes Kumano, crippling her. She'll survive, barely, but she's out of the fight. Japanese shells start falling. Enormous colored splashes, red dye from one ship, yellow from another, green, purple, so gunners can spot their own salvos. The water becomes a rainbow of death. A 14-inch shell from battleship Congo passes clean through Johnston's hull without detonating. Armor-piercing rounds designed for battleships, wasted on a destroyer. Then Yamato's 18-inch guns find the range. The bridge explodes. Evans takes shrapnel. Half his command staff dies instantly. Number 1 engine room floods. Speed drops to 17 knots. Steering shifts to manual control aft. Sailors cranking the rudder by hand while shells explode around them. But Johnston keeps fighting. At 0820, with 1 engine, Evans sees destroyers Hull and Heermann making their torpedo runs. His ship is crippled, listing, burning. He orders, "We'll go in and provide fire support. Hell isn't hot enough to stop this ship."
Why could Fletcher-class destroyers absorb punishment that would annihilate other warships? The answer lives in the physics. Flush deck hull design provides structural strength older destroyer types lack. No raised forecastle means longitudinal girders run the entire 376.5-foot length without interruption. When a shell hits, stress distributes along the keel rather than concentrating at joints. The hull flexes, absorbs, survives. Compartmentalization is paranoid perfection. Watertight doors every 20 feet, double bulkheads around machinery spaces. If flooding occurs in frames 45-60, the ship stays afloat. If fire erupts in the forward engine room, the aft engine room remains sealed, operational. Engineers design for catastrophic damage and get it right. Steam plant, 2 oil-fired boilers producing 600 psi at 850 degrees Fahrenheit. The air-encased boilers protect against seawater flooding even if the hull breaches near machinery spaces. 2 General Electric geared turbines drive twin screws. If one turbine fails, the other continues. Redundancy isn't luxury, it's doctrine. The Mark 37 gunfire control system is the secret weapon. Radar-directed firing solutions using the Mark 1A computer, an analog mechanical calculator that factors target speed, range, bearing, ship motion, wind. Japanese destroyers rely on optical rangefinders. Fletchers shoot accurately through smoke, rain, darkness. At Leyte Gulf, this technology lets Johnston hit Kumano repeatedly from 18,000 yards, beyond visual range. Critics note weaknesses, relatively poor maneuverability. Iowa-class battleships can outturn a Fletcher. Single rudder limits turning radius. Later destroyer classes adopt twin rudders to address this, but survivability, unmatched. USS Heermann takes dozens of shell hits off Samar, loses 6 crew, and sails away. USS Newcomb survives 4 kamikaze hits on April 6, 1945, a floating wreck but floating. The structural engineering isn't elegant, it's simply superior. Japanese destroyers, faster, more maneuverable, heavier torpedo armament. American Fletchers, tougher, better sensors, better damage control. In a war of attrition, toughness wins.
Water Tender Second Class Elmer Bigelow descends into USS Fletcher's engine room every watch, knowing the compartment is a steel coffin if something goes wrong. No windows, no escape route if the watertight doors seal during combat. Just steam pipes at 850 degrees Fahrenheit, boilers roaring, turbines screaming, temperature hovering at 120 degrees Fahrenheit, even in the Pacific night. His job? Maintain water levels, monitor pressure gauges, respond to bridge demands for flank speed by opening throttles that could scald a man's hands to bone if grabbed bare. February 14, 1945, minesweeping operations off Corrugator. A Japanese shore battery opens fire. The shell penetrates the number 1 fire room. Bigelow is standing 15 feet from the impact. Shrapnel tears through pipes. Superheated steam erupts. Invisible, lethal. Men scream. The compartment floods with scalding vapor that cooks flesh on contact. Watertight integrity demands sealing the compartment. Bigelow knows this means death for anyone inside. He stays. Working through steam that burns his lungs with every breath, Bigelow secures valves, preventing boiler explosion that would kill dozens more. He lasts long enough to save the ship, then his body fails. Third-degree burns over 70% of his body. He dies 4 days later. He receives the Medal of Honor posthumously. His story is not unique. Aboard USS Johnston, 186 crew die when she finally sinks off Samar. Many go down with the ship. Others drowned in the hours afterward, waiting for rescue that comes too slow. Commander Evans is last seen alive in the water, refusing a life jacket. I'm done for. His body is never recovered. The human cost extends beyond combat. Radar picket duty off Okinawa grinds men psychologically. Kamikazes attack in waves. General quarters bells clang day and night. Sleep deprivation becomes weaponized. Some crews endure 50 consecutive days at battle stations. The steel endures. The men inside it bear the real cost.
April 6, 1945. Operation Kikusui No. 1 begins. 355 kamikaze aircraft launch from Kyushu airfields targeting radar picket ships off Okinawa. Fletcher-class destroyers form the first defensive ring, positioned 40 to 70 miles offshore. Isolated, immobile, electronic sentinels broadcasting radar signatures that make them primary targets. The mathematics favor the attacker. A kamikaze pilot requires minimal training: takeoff, navigation, dive. Cost: 1 aircraft, 1 pilot. Benefit: potential sinking of a multi-million-dollar warship with 300 trained crew. Japanese commanders calculate this is sustainable. American commanders know better, but the crews on picket duty pay the learning cost. USS Bush and USS Calhoun both sink that day, overwhelmed by successive kamikaze waves. USS Newcomb takes 4 kamikazes, deck engulfed in aviation gasoline fire, 39 dead, 67 wounded. She survives only because damage control teams extinguish fires before magazines detonate. The ship is towed to Okinawa, decommissioned later that year. American countermeasures evolve rapidly. Anti-aircraft armament increases throughout 1945. Ships returning stateside for refit receive modified configurations. Forward torpedo tubes removed, replaced by quadruple 40mm mounts. Total AA firepower increases to 14 40mm barrels plus 12 20mm guns. It's barely enough. April 12th, USS Manard L. Pable becomes the first ship destroyed by an Oka, a rocket-propelled kamikaze bomb released from a bomber. Speed over 600 miles per hour. The weapon strikes Able's forward fire room, splits the ship in 2. She sinks in 5 minutes, 79 dead. Between March and July 1945, 17 Fletchers are lost off Okinawa. 9 more suffer damage beyond repair. The loss rate, 14% of the entire class, concentrates in just 5 months. The kamikazes prove what designers feared: destroyers are mortal. But here's what Japan misses. America builds Fletchers faster than kamikazes can sink them. The final Fletcher, DD-804, commissions February 26, 1945. The last one lost, USS Callahan, July 28, 1945. Production outlasts attrition.
August 15, 1945. Japan surrenders. The Fletcher-class destroyer force dominates the Pacific anchorages: Ulithi, Leyte, Tokyo Bay. Of 175 commissioned, 150 survive the war. They've earned collectively over 500 battle stars. USS Fletcher and USS O'Bannon each claims 17, the most decorated destroyers in U.S. Navy history. The final accounting reveals the disparity that decided a war. 175 built, 19 lost, 6 damaged beyond repair. Loss rate, 14%.
Japan sank Fletchers at a slower rate than American shipyards launched them. Industrial capacity transformed into maritime dominance. But the legacy extends beyond numbers. Fletcher-class destroyers served through Korea, shore bombardments, carrier screens, submarine hunts. They served through Vietnam. Some transferred to foreign navies: Brazil, Chile, Germany, Greece, Italy, Japan, Mexico, Peru, Spain, Taiwan, Turkey. The last Fletcher on active duty, Bam Queetlawak, formerly USS John Rogers, decommissions from the Mexican Navy on July 2001. Total service span, 59 years from first commission to final retirement. 4 survive as museum ships today: USS Kidd in Baton Rouge, USS The Sullivans in Buffalo, USS Cass and Young in Boston, and Greek Navy vessel Velos in Athens. The revolution they represent is permanent: radar-directed fire control, mass-produced standardized designs, multi-role versatility. Modern destroyers, Arleigh Burke-class, trace conceptual lineage directly to Fletcher-class doctrine: sensors over armor, firepower over tonnage, adaptability over specialization. The men who served aboard them, Ernest Evans, Elmer Bigelow, thousands whose names survive only on crew rosters, wrote the manual on destroyer warfare that navies still study. Their ships were neither the fastest nor the most powerful, but they were tough enough, versatile enough, and numerous enough to dominate the largest ocean on Earth. In the end, America won the Pacific War with carriers, submarines, and logistics. But the destroyers that screened those carriers, that hunted those supply routes, that stood picket duty off Okinawa, they were Fletchers. Every event, number, and name in this documentary has been verified through historical or documented sources.
May 12, 1940, Flight Lieutenant James Leithart snaps his throttle forward, then further. The wire breaks. His Spitfire explodes upward like it's been kicked by God himself. The Messerschmitt ahead, confident, cocky, already turning for home, doesn't see it coming. Leithart's closing at a rate that shouldn't be possible. His hands shake on the stick, not from fear, from disbelief. 3 weeks ago, over Dunkirk, that same Bf-109 would have outrun him, would have climbed away, laughing in German over the radio. But something has changed, something invisible, something the Germans don't know about yet. He fires. The 109 disintegrates. Across the channel, in a concrete bunker in Calais, Luftwaffe intelligence officers are about to receive a report that will confuse them for months. British fighters, the same Spitfires and Hurricanes they dominated over France, are suddenly 30 miles per hour faster. They climb like rockets. They're everywhere at once. One German pilot will land and tell his commander they must have new aircraft. They don't. They have new fuel. But here's what makes this story remarkable. Nobody planned it as a weapon. The miracle chemical that saved Britain from invasion wasn't developed by the military. It was perfected by a French race car enthusiast in a Pennsylvania refinery, a man who'd never fired a gun in anger. Eugene Houdry didn't set out to win a war. He just wanted to make better gasoline. By June 1940, as Hitler masses his forces for the largest air assault in history, 300,000 tons of this golden liquid sit in British storage tanks. The RAF has exactly 754 operational fighters. The Germans have 2,600 aircraft. The odds are impossible. But the British have something else, a 13-point advantage in octane that will change everything. This is the story of the secret fuel that won the Battle of Britain.
January 1937. Air Ministry Conference Room, London. F.R. Banks, internal combustion expert, stands before skeptical officers. Gentlemen, we're flying obsolete fuel into a modern war. His recommendation: switch the entire RAF to 100-octane fuel. Immediate, universal, non-negotiable. The response? Rejected. The reasoning seems sound. Only America can produce 100-octane in quantity. What happens when war comes and supply lines collapse? Better to stick with reliable 87-octane, safe, proven, abundantly available from British refineries. Meanwhile, across Europe, another story unfolds. In Pennsylvania, Eugene Jules Houdry, born in France, now an American citizen, is revolutionizing petroleum chemistry. Not for warfare, for capitalism. His catalytic cracking process can break large petroleum molecules into smaller, more volatile ones. The result? Twice the gasoline from the same barrel of crude. But not just more gasoline, better gasoline. Fuel with octane ratings approaching 100. By 1938, Air Ministry personnel changes bring new thinking. Experiments begin with imported American fuel. An entire tanker arrives.
Results are extraordinary. 25 to 34 miles per hour speed increase, 500 to 1,000 feet per minute better climb rate, the difference between matching the Messerschmitt and losing to it. June 1939, Britain starts stockpiling, 150,000 tons purchased. Then the race begins, 300,000 tons by July 1940. But there's a catch, the engines need modification. Higher compression means higher temperatures. Stock Merlin engines running 87 octane operate at plus 6.25 pounds boost pressure. For 100 octane, they need plus 12 pounds. March 1940, conversion begins. Engineers install new cylinder heads, redesign supercharger boost controls. Each Merlin requires hours of specialist work, and the clock is ticking. In Germany, Luftwaffe intelligence assumes Britain will fight with 87 octane. Their tactical doctrine, their energy management calculations, their combat maneuvers, all based on performance data from the Battle of France. They're about to discover they've prepared for the wrong war.
Marcus Hook, Pennsylvania, 1937. The first commercial catalytic cracker hums to life at Sunoil's refinery. Eugene Houdry watches temperatures climb, pressure gauges vibrate. Inside the reactor, crude petroleum meets silica alumina catalyst at precisely 900 degrees Fahrenheit. Magic happens. Long hydrocarbon chains, useless for aviation, crack into shorter branched molecules, iso-octane, the gold standard, the molecule that defines octane 100. Before this, thermal cracking used brutal heat and pressure, expensive, inefficient, produced fuel that knocked and pinged in high-compression engines. But Houdry's catalyst changes everything. It rearranges molecular structures, creates branched hydrocarbons and aromatics that resist premature ignition under pressure. The difference? Life and death at 20,000 feet. In Britain, Rolls-Royce engineers face a parallel problem. The Merlin engine, 27 liters of V12 Fury, wants to tear itself apart. Higher octane means higher boost. Higher boost means higher cylinder pressures. Push too hard and pistons melt, connecting rods snap, entire engines seize mid-combat. The solution requires surgical precision. New shrouded cylinder heads dissipate heat, modified superchargers force more air into combustion chambers, valve seats machined to tighter tolerances. But the real innovation? A brass restrictor, later nicknamed Miss Schilling's orifice, prevents fuel starvation during negative G maneuvers. Because pilots discovered something terrifying. When a Spitfire noses over hard following a diving Messerschmitt, the Merlin chokes. Fuel sloshes away from the carburetor intake, the engine dies. For 5 crucial seconds, you're a glider. Beatrice Schilling, Royal Aircraft Establishment engineer, designs a simple flow restrictor, precisely calculated, thimble-shaped brass. Install time, 30 minutes. Problem solved. By May 1940, reconnaissance Spitfires begin operational sorties on 100 octane. Pilots report the same thing. The aircraft feels alive, angry, eager. July 31st, 384 Spitfires in 19 squadrons fully converted. The Battle of Britain officially begins July 10th. The Luftwaffe has no idea what's coming.
August 8, 1940. 145 Squadron scrambles from West Hampnet. Flight Lieutenant Peter Parrott climbs his Spitfire toward a formation of Ju-87 Stukas. Altitude, 15,000 feet. The dive bombers are protected by Bf-109Es, experienced pilots, Spanish Civil War veterans. They know their business. Parrott snaps the emergency boost override. The throttle gate breaks. What happens next defies the Germans' entire tactical framework. The Spitfire accelerates upward like it's launched from a catapult. The 109 escorts, positioned to bounce any climbing RAF fighters, suddenly find themselves outpaced, outclimbed, out-everythinged. One German pilot, Oberlieutenant Julius Neumann, radios his wingman. "Impossible! That's the same fighter we shot up over Dunkirk." It is. Across the combat zone, similar scenes unfold. Hurricane pilots discover they can finally dictate engagement terms. The standard emergency procedure, running for cloud cover, praying the Messerschmitt can't follow, becomes obsolete. Now, they turn and fight. Post-combat intelligence reports flood RAF Group headquarters. Pilots describe enemy fighters confused by the sudden performance shift. Luftwaffe formations breaking formation unexpectedly. 109s attempting to extend away from combat, their standard escape tactic, only to discover pursuing Spitfires matching their speed. At Bentley Priory, Air Chief Marshal Hugh Dowding reads the reports with controlled satisfaction. 3 factors, he'll later say, won the battle: pilot skill, the Merlin engine, and suitable fuel.
But here's what the reports don't capture: the psychological impact. German fighter pilots returned to French airfields rattled. They'd owned the sky over Poland, over France, over Norway. Their confidence wasn't just high, it was absolute. Now, that confidence cracks. "We're fighting ghosts," one pilot tells his mechanic. "The same aircraft, different performance." In Berlin, Luftwaffe Command receives contradictory intelligence. Some reports claim new British fighters, others insist modifications to existing airframes. Nobody suspects fuel. Yet.
Karenhall, August 1940. Reichsmarschall Hermann Göring studies loss reports. The numbers don't add up. Luftwaffe intelligence predicted fighter command would collapse within 2 weeks. Superior German aircraft, superior German pilots, superior German tactics, mathematical certainty. Instead, RAF sortie rates are increasing. Göring demands answers. His intelligence chief, Oberst Josef Schmedeck, offers confused analysis. Perhaps new squadrons from northern England, hidden reserves. The British must be lying about aircraft production. They're not. They're using better chemistry. At Rolls-Royce's Derby facility, engineers monitor engine performance data radioed from combat zones. Merlins running plus 12 pounds boost are holding up, barely. Time between overhauls drops from 240 hours to 180, but it's survivable. More importantly, pilots are surviving. The strategic implications ripple outward. Production priorities shift. British tankers crossing the Atlantic carry 100 octane as priority cargo. Convoy routes adjust. U-boat targeting changes as German naval intelligence notices the pattern. In Washington, U.S. Army Air Corps observers take notes. American air doctrine still assumes 87 octane standard. Seeing British results, that doctrine begins to evolve. By late 1940, U.S. orders for catalytic cracking facilities explode. Houdry plants expand. Standard Oil, Socani Vacuum, Sun Oil, all racing to build capacity. By 1942, 14 Houdry catalytic crackers will aspirate at maximum output. They'll produce 90% of Allied aviation fuel for the war's first 2 years. But here's the cascade effect nobody predicted. German synthetic fuel production can't match it. Their Fischer-Tropsch co-liquefaction process produces excellent quantity, poor quality. The chemical structure of coal-derived fuel limits octane potential. Even with tetraethyl lead additives, German fuel tops out at 87 octane. Some C2 fuel reaches 95 octane, rare, rationed to elite units only. Meanwhile, every RAF fighter burns American-grade 100. The performance cap becomes doctrine. Spitfires engage fighters, Hurricanes engage bombers, because now they can. September 15th, 1940, 11:30 a.m. Pilot Officer Jeffrey Wellham snaps awake at the scramble bell. His 6th sortie today. No time for fear, no time for thought. Just muscle memory and adrenaline. Red section, airborne. Bandits, Angels 2-0, Vector 090. Wellham's Spitfire claws for altitude. The Merlin screams at 3,000 RPM, manifold pressure plus 9 pounds. Normal combat power. Not enough. Ahead, sunlight glints off canopies, BF-109Es, diving. Energy advantage. The geometry is wrong. They'll bounce red section before intercept altitude. Wellham's hand finds the throttle gate. Breaks it. The Merlin's note changes, deeper, angrier. Boost pressure surges to plus 12. The supercharger shrieks. Fuel consumption becomes catastrophic, 5 minutes maximum, but 5 minutes is eternity in combat. The Spitfire launches upward. The 109 pilot commits to his dive, standard bounce, textbook, except his target isn't where physics says it should be. Wellham rolls inverted, pulls through. The negative G should kill his engine. It did 3 months ago when the carburetor would flood and die. Not now. Miss Schilling's restrictor works. The Merlin coughs once, catches, roars. Wellham's in the 109's dead 6. 8 Brownings converge at 250 yards, 160 rounds per second. The 109's fuselage rips apart. Coolant spray, white, glycol-based, streams back. The German pilot bails. Elapsed time, 43 seconds. Back at the sector station, Wellham taxis in, checks his fuel, 20 minutes remaining. His hands shake. Not fear, adrenaline crash. The ground crew swarms his aircraft. Fuel bowser connects, oil checked, ammunition replenished. Turnaround time, 12 minutes. The scramble bell rings again.
Wellham's mechanic pats the fuselage. She's thirsty on that boost, sir. Drinks like my old man. She's thirsty, Wellham agrees, but she's fast. He climbs back in. Round 7.
Let's talk chemistry. Octane measures anti-knock properties. The higher the rating, the more compression an engine tolerates before fuel ignites prematurely. Premature ignition, knocking, destroys engines, melts pistons, cracks cylinder heads. 87 octane fuel allows roughly 6.5 to 1 compression ratio. 100 octane, 8 to 1 or higher. That compression difference translates directly into power. The Merlin 3, running 87 octane at plus 6.25 pounds boost, produces 1,030 horsepower at 3,000 RPM at 10,000 feet. Same engine, 100 octane at plus 12 pounds boost, 1,310 horsepower at 9,000 feet for 5 minutes. The math is brutal. 27% power increase from fuel alone. But here's what makes 100 octane special: molecular structure. Hoodry's catalytic cracking doesn't just break petroleum chains, it rearranges them, creates branched hydrocarbons, isooctane, isobutane, complex aromatics. These molecules resist compression ignition better than straight-chain hydrocarbons. The result? Stable combustion under extreme pressure and temperature. The Merlin supercharger can force more air-fuel mixture into cylinders without catastrophic detonation. Speed increase? 25 miles per hour at sea level, 34 miles per hour at 10,000 feet. Rate of climb? 500 to 1,000 feet per minute improvement depending on altitude and aircraft weight. Compared to German fuel, Luftwaffe standard B4 fuel rated 87 octane. Their upgraded C2 fuel, introduced late 1939, reaches 95 octane. Rare, rationed. Some sources indicate limited C3 fuel approached 100 octane, but only elite units received it. Messerschmitt Bf 109E4/N with DB601N engine could use C2. Power increase? 20% over standard DB601A, but engine reliability suffered. Valve life? Approximately 40 hours before replacement needed. Meanwhile, Merlin engines on 100 octane maintained 180-hour overhaul intervals. The logistical advantage compounds. British fighters could sustain high-performance operations. German high-octane units couldn't. Production figures? 1.1 million barrels monthly of 100 octane shipped to Britain in the first 6 months of 1940. Hoodry plants producing 90% of catalytically cracked fuel. Germany's Fischer-Tropsch synthetic fuel production? Plentiful, but chemically limited to 87 octane maximum with additives. The molecules themselves enforced strategic reality. Flight Surgeon's Office, RAF Tangmere, September 1940. Pilot Officer Richard Hillary sits for his medical. 3rd time this week. The doc checks his hands, trembling, his eyes, bloodshot, his weight, down 12 pounds in 3 weeks. Operational fatigue, the doc writes. Hillary laughs, bitter. It's the throttle gate. The doctor doesn't understand. Here's what Hillary can't articulate. Flying plus 12 pounds boost changes you. The aircraft becomes violently responsive, twitchy, every control input amplified. A Spitfire on emergency boost isn't transportation. It's a barely controlled explosion with wings. The psychological toll? Measured in adrenaline crashes, in knowing you have 5 minutes of God mode power, then nothing. In breaking that wire gate, feeling it snap under your palm, and knowing you've just committed to a death match. No escape velocity remains if things go wrong. Sergeant James Lacey, 501 Squadron, writes to his mother, "The new fuel makes the kite an absolute beast, climbs like a homesick angel, but my hands shake for an hour after landing, not from the fighting, from controlling it." Enemy perspective matters too. Luftwaffe after-action reports reveal confusion, frustration, fear. Hauptmann Horst Tietzen, JG-51. The Tommy fighters are faster than intelligence briefed. Our tactical advantages, speed, climb, no longer reliable. Morale suffers. By late September, German fighter pilots show measurable stress. Sortie refusal rates increase. Some units rotate out early. Combat effectiveness declines not from losses, but from psychological attrition. The British face different pressure. Knowing you have technological advantage doesn't erase fear. It amplifies responsibility. Every loss feels more tragic because survival should be easier. But here's the civilian cost nobody discusses. American tanker crews crossing the Atlantic, U-boats targeting fuel shipments, sailors dying to deliver barrels of gasoline. Between June-December 1940, 14 tankers sunk, 247 merchant sailors killed. Their cargo,
100 octane. The secret weapon has a price measured in lives before it ever reaches a fighter.
Late August 1940. Occupied Belgium. Spitfire P9374 goes down near Calais during bomber escort. Pilot bails, captured. Aircraft crashes in marshy ground, mostly intact. Luftwaffe technical intelligence swarms the wreck. They drain the fuel tanks, run chemical analysis, test octane rating. Their instruments read 100. Stunned silence. The German chemists retest. Same result. Intelligence officers scramble to report findings. RAF fighters aren't using 87 octane, they're using something dramatically better. Worse news follows. Captured fuel samples go to Messerschmitt engineers. Can the Bf-109 use it? Answer: no. The DB601 engine's compression ratio and supercharger boost limitations prevent utilizing 100 octane's full potential without major redesign. Months of re-engineering required. New cylinder heads, modified superchargers, complete production line retooling. Germany doesn't have months, they have weeks before winter ends the campaign season. Luftwaffe Command issues tactical modifications. Avoid prolonged climbing engagements, don't attempt to outrun Spitfires in level flight. Use altitude advantage and boom and zoom tactics exclusively. But tactical adjustments can't overcome strategic chemistry. German synthetic fuel plants accelerate C3 production, their 100 octane equivalent. But the Fischer-Tropsch process resists optimization. Coal-derived hydrocarbons simply don't form the branched molecules needed for high-octane performance. By October 1940, limited C3 fuel reaches frontline units. Too little, too late. Meanwhile, Britain's fuel stockpiles grow. November 1940, 440,000 tons of 100 octane. Other grades, 257,000 tons. The ratio reverses from pre-war projections. Adolf Galland, commanding JG-26, famously responds to Goering's question about needed equipment, a squadron of Spitfires. Goering thinks he's being insolent. He's being honest. Some historians dispute this quote's authenticity, but the sentiment appears in multiple Luftwaffe after-action reports. Give us aircraft competitive with 100 octane-fueled British fighters, or adjust our strategic objectives. Hitler chooses option 3, postpone invasion indefinitely. Sea Lion cancelled. Luftwaffe redirects to night bombing. The day battle is lost. A 13-point octane difference made invasion impossible.
The Battle of Britain ends October 31st, 1940. Final count, 1,733 Luftwaffe aircraft destroyed, 915 RAF fighters lost. Britain survives. Historians credit radar, fighter command tactics, pilot bravery. All true. But Vladimir Kalachevsky, Sakoni Vacuum Oil Company, writes in 1943, a difference of only 13 points in octane number made possible the defeat of the Luftwaffe by the RAF in the fall of 1940. Slight as it seems, sufficient to give the vital edge in altitude, rate of climb, maneuverability that spells the difference between defeat and victory. Air Chief Marshal Tedder agrees. 3 factors contributed to British aerial victory: pilot skill and bravery, the Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, and the availability of suitable fuel. The fuel story doesn't end there. By 1944, Britain and America field 115 145 octane fuel, then 100-150 grade, nicknamed Bosta, for intercepting V-1 flying bombs. Using xylidine additives, boost pressure reaches plus 25 pounds. Spitfire speeds at sea level jump to 362 miles per hour. Post-war, the chemistry behind high-octane fuel revolutionizes commercial aviation. Catalytic cracking becomes industry standard. Eugene Houdry, the race car enthusiast who never intended to change history, receives the Perkin Medal in 1959. Modern aviation fuel? Still refined using principles Houdry developed. The Merlin engine's descendants power vintage aircraft worldwide. RAF Battle of Britain Memorial Flight operates Spitfires and Hurricanes today. They use modern 100 LL fuel, low lead, similar octane rating. The twist? Environmental regulations now target leaded aviation fuel for elimination. The chemistry that saved Britain in 1940 faces phase-out by 2030. History's irony completes the circle. The invisible advantage, the secret no parade celebrated, now battles environmental necessity. But September 1940's lesson remains. Warfare isn't just weapons and bravery. It's logistics, chemistry, industrial capacity. A French engineer in Pennsylvania changed the course of World War II with molecular rearrangement. Every event, number, and name in this documentary has been verified through historical and documented sources.